what is your name and what do you do?
Jarrett Barrios, State Senator from Cambridge. What do I do? Is that what you said?
Well, yeah, State Senator.
I'm the State Senator, which means I work to deliver on the promises of government as opportunities to the people of my district.
And how did you get started in politics?
I got pissed at my state representative who was flip-flopping on the death penalty, and I ran against him. That's how I first ran for office. Before that, my first job in politics came from an apolitical family. Was running. I got a job through the Institute of Politics at Harvard, which is where I went to college, to work in a Boston City Councilor's office, an openly gay city councilor named David Sconders. And that was sort of what got me interested. And eventually, although not immediately, so it was the bug that got me. So. Anyway.
What do you feel is your biggest accomplishment so far in your political career?
That's a good question. My biggest accomplishment in my political career, in some ways, was simply running and winning because of the challenges of being an openly gay candidate, even in Massachusetts. My Senate district, when I ran for the Senate, running for the House from Cambridge probably wasn't a huge step for Canterburyans to vote for an openly gay candidate. But to run as, to run as myself in a district that was, before the redistricting to include Cambridge, was the most pro-life district in the state. It was, there were parts of my district where I was something phenomenal. That was a big deal. Legislatively speaking, I've been able to pass legislation when the federal assault weapon ban sunset. Just today we passed legislation, an omnibus anti-gang violence bill, which will give prosecutors tools to go after gang leaders. I've done a range of bills on housing and health care. And then my participation in the marriage debate here in Massachusetts probably would have to stand out as well as one of the more personally profound experiences, having 2 children, being married to my partner. These are all experiences which are worthy of remembrance, but I think probably the Constitutional Convention and how proud I am of how my colleagues acquitted themselves, or so many of my colleagues performed in support of fairness and equality. That's probably the biggest experience.
One of the things I was talking about with Chuck Wolf was the fact that he mentioned it's important to have LGBT people in office because of issues like that. If you have a legislature that has no representation from the LGBT community and you have an issue like marriage come up, it's much harder to look at a colleague in the face and say, I don't think this is right, than it is to be in an open session with no LGBT people. What do you think about that? Did you find your experience hostile when the issue came up, or?
What do I find? Neither the marriage issue isn't the first gay issue that's come up in the Massachusetts legislature, as in most legislatures. We're usually on the defensive, right? We'll pass some sort of anti-discrimination ordinance in some town, and there'll be an effort to repeal it, and so we're on the defensive. Each one of those fights is really a conversation with the public about how we define community, how we define who is part of our community of equals, and how different members of our community should be treated. And granted, I don't think every state's ready for marriage, it would appear, judging by the ballot initiatives that we see around, the results of the ballot initiatives we see around the country. But we're all on that spectrum. We're all on the spectrum of moving towards full equality, and nothing is going to turn us back on that. People become fair-minded, don't become bigots. Again, once they see what the issue is really about. Having openly gay and lesbian officials whether in Congress or in our state legislatures, are clear ways to, from my perspective, important ways to guarantee that we propel forward that agenda more speedily. Meeting somebody who's gay, knowing somebody who's gay, and knowing that, they've got to pay the rent, they've got, car trouble sometimes, they've got, that they're not the stereotype articulated by the right wing, some sort of, I don't know, sadomasochistic fantasy of the right wing world that they articulate. That is how we make great progress. And when we're in the room, when we're in the chamber, it becomes impossible for them to talk about things because it's something as simple as bad manners. You don't want to talk about somebody to them, right? You have people tone down the rhetoric. And they also change. They see that you're not about, they become less susceptible. All the folks in the middle who are being spoken to with that rhetoric are just persuaded by it when they see openly gay and lesbian people in their midst.